Late riser KJ McClain committed to Tennessee yesterday. What does he bring to the defensive backfield and overall to the class? We'll tell you about Tennessee's new commit here on a Thursday, Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's good, everybody? Happy Thursday morning and welcome into Locked On Vols, your spot for Tennessee football news and entertainment. Weekday mornings when you wake up, we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Today's episode is brought to you in part by our friends over at Game Time. You can download the Game Time app, create an account, put in the promo code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Again, shout out to our friends over at Game Time. I'm your host, Cain. Pleased to have you along for the ride here. Of course, I work over the VolQuest.com website, the On3 affiliate here covering Tennessee, bringing you all the news and information you need on Tennessee football, baseball, transfer portal swirling. We're going to talk a little bit of that in segment number 3. Tennessee got a baseball transfer portal edition yesterday. A really, really good local standout. More on that in segment number 3. In segment number 2, Tyreek King. Brian Smith, Locked On Portal. Of course, he does recruiting here for us. Locked On Podcast Network has Tyreek King rated very highly in terms of slot receivers in the 2026 class. Where and what's that say about Tennessee in terms of the slot receiving production in the Josh Heupel offense? It's a lot of good stuff coming up in segment number 2, but I'm going to tell you all about the new commit, KJ McClain, here in segment number 1 for the University of Tennessee. So KJ McClain, fresh off an official visit here in Knoxville this past weekend, 5'11". He's right on the bridge there of 6 foot. About 160 pounds, and he is from St. Joseph Regional in New Jersey. West Orange, New Jersey is where he's from, St. Joseph Regional High School. Again, about 6'11"-ish, 5'11"-ish, about almost 6 foot, 160. He comes in as a 3-star rated prospect by On3, 247, and Rivals.com. The national On3 industry rankings has him as prospect number 606 in the class, the 49th safety, and the 10th player out of the state of New Jersey. Again, he is a safety who is committed to the University of Tennessee, and that came about, so we'll call it Wednesday afternoon, about 3 o'clock-ish is when he committed. Now, what's this mean for the class? Well, Tennessee obviously still very much in pursuit of Craig Tutt. 4-star highly rated safety, in-state prospect, Tennessee Ole Miss, that's the battle there. Luke Thompson is also one that Tennessee's very much in on, sitting pretty well with Luke Thompson as well, who, was just visited last weekend too. So there are more safety and defensive back targets on the board for the University of Tennessee, but this is a guy that Tennessee offered last December, a guy that Tennessee's gotten back on campus, got him back on campus for a junior day / spring practice, I believe, in the month of March. Of course, got him back for an official visit this past weekend. A guy that Tennessee, kind of values and projects as a guy that can, play some pretty good football down the line. And he has a brother who signed with the University of Ohio State, I should say, and started a game or two, and you kind of mixed into the rotation back there in the defensive backfield for the national champions, Ohio State. So football's in the family, no doubt, but Tennessee kind of identified him a little bit early, offered him in December, and has kind of been getting him back onto campus a lot over the last little bit. Now he commits to the University of Tennessee. Matt Ray over at VolQuest.com, my colleague, had a nice impact analysis kind of going over what KJ McClain means to the class, and he actually spoke with St. Joseph Regional head coach Augie Hoffman, and here's some quotes on KJ McClain from his high school coach right now. Quote, KJ is one of the better players we've had come through here. He comes downhill at you, he is a sure tackler, plays well in space, and he really does a good job for us. Says, I think it's just going to be the physical piece of the game in terms of how he's going to help Tennessee. He has really taken to the weight room this year. He has gotten bigger, faster, stronger. I think playing in the Southeastern Conference, you have to keep building his body, of course. His work habits are there. His brain is there. He really understands the game. So I think it's going to be continuing to work on his body and getting physically where he needs to be the best player that he can be in the SEC, end quote. Again, that was his high school coach over at St. Joseph Regional in New Jersey, Augie Hoffman, who told Matt Ray over at VolQuest.com. Check out the full impact analysis piece over at VolQuest.com, breaking down the commitment of Tennessee defensive back safety in KJ McClain. So, again, you look at this class here for the University of Tennessee, and it now sits at 9. 9 behind Faison Brandon, the 5-star quarterback, 4-star offensive tackle Gabriel Senda, 4-star wide receiver, who we'll speak on more in segment number 2, and Tyreek King, 4-star edge rusher Zach Groves, 4-star tight end Carson Sneed, 3-star wide receiver Tyron Evans, 3-star edge rusher CJ Edwards, and 3-star linebacker Braylon Outlaw. So CJ McClain now joins the class right there, fringe top 10. The rankings haven't updated at the time of this recording, but going into this commitment, Tennessee was 13th in the country and 6th in the SEC. So I think Tennessee might move up a spot or two potentially, just because, classes are still pretty small right now numbers-wise, and this will be the 9th commit for the University of Tennessee and KJ McClain. So a guy, again, that Tennessee likes an awful lot, and, looking back at kind of what he said leaving campus this past weekend, really enjoyed all the activities they had lined up for the official visitors, enjoyed hanging out with Josh Heupel, said that, he and, Tennessee very familiar with one another now. Tennessee knows his personality, kind of what he's about. He knows the coaching staff's personality and kind of knows, what kind of vibes and boxes to check in that regard. Says that, quote, "I'm big on relationships, so seeing the head coach around and caring for his guys is something that I really value. I'm a family guy," and that's what McClain told VolQuest leaving campus this past weekend. He goes on to say, "Relationships are key. Having a good relationship with your coach is great. Knowing he is a good guy really gives you a boost." When, in terms of where he could, fit at back in the defensive backfield, said that Tennessee likes him an awful lot, kind of all over the place. He said, quote, again, this is leaving campus this past weekend. He said, "Really, they see me at any position. I think I can play any of the spots. They've recruited me as a DB, not just a safety. I want to be versatile. I really think I can play all the secondary positions, and they think so too. So I really like that." And again, that's how Tennessee recruits, specifically in the defensive backfield, a little bit on the offensive line, to cross-train. You want safeties cross-training at star. You want some corners cross-training at star a little bit as well. And that's kind of where Tennessee has been doing and what it's been doing in terms of recruiting, really under Josh Heupel and specifically under Tim Banks and Willie Martinez and some of the guys in that defensive back room. So I like this guy. I think that he's obviously talked about stargazing a little bit and all that, and I got some comments on the YouTube channel saying, well, look at the national champions and look at all the guys that they recruited and the star ratings and all that, and I hear you. Like, I'm not saying they don't matter. I'm just saying you can't take anything to the bank. You just don't know. I think looking at blue chip ratio is very important. I wholeheartedly agree. I think blue chip ratio, you need to be up there. You need to be one of the higher percentages in terms of blue chip ratios in the country when it comes to recruiting. But I think sometimes we can get in trouble. Again, I call it stargazing. I can promise you this, Josh Heupel's evaluations of prospects are much different than ours. Sure, we can all see good football players, but things in his game that he can see that can really translate to the field or that maybe he's a year or two away from truly developing, he and his staff, football coaches, that's what they do for a living, right? I mean, they scout, they evaluate talent. They can see those things that we might not be able to see right now. So I think sometimes we can get in trouble just kind of looking at the star ratings for players, and maybe KJ McClain kind of comes into this conversation. But again, as I always like to remind people, a lot of times you get a lowly rated player, they sign with a Power 4 program, they'll get a bit of a boost the next time that they do a rankings update. So KJ McClain commits to the University of Tennessee. Awesome coverage from Matt Ray, Austin Price over at VolQuest.com yesterday. And, of course, he becomes the 9th commit for the class of 2026 for Tennessee football. Another fellow commit now for the class of 2026, Tyreek King, local prospect, wide receiver out of Knoxville Catholic. Brian Smith, high on Tyreek King. How high? Where does he fall in terms of the top slot receivers in the country in terms of the 2026 recruiting class? You don't want to go anywhere. This is a really, really high praise coming up next right here on Locked On Vols. Stay tuned. There's nothing like the NBA playoffs. There's intensity, buzzer beaters, fans losing their minds. It's kind of like the atmosphere that you really got to experience live. And this year's matchups are already delivering. So if you want in, Game Time makes it fast and easy to get seats, even for the biggest playoff games. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to tip-off. And sometimes you can buy tickets even an hour or so after the event has started. Killer last-minute deals, views of your seats, no surprise fees at checkout. Game Time is a total game changer for the sports fans, a lot of times the procrastinating sports fans like you and certainly me. But it's not just sports fans, okay? You can do concerts, comedy shows, minor league games in your area. I mean, whatever event is going on in your area, typically you can find tickets to said event on the Game Time app. And with the Game Time guarantee, you're getting the best deal. If you find a better price in the same row and section, they're going to credit you 110% of the difference. Man, that's having your back, right? Download the Game Time app today, create an account, put in the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create that account, put in the redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. We talked about cross-training, specifically in the defensive backfield, a little bit on the offensive line in segment number 1 when kind of going over Tennessee's new commit, KJ McClain. But they do it a little bit at wide receiver as well. But there are some guys that are truly just a slot receiver, right? Slot receivers don't always have to be short in stature or the fastest guys or the quickest guys. It really depends on the offense that you run in, and I think we've seen a couple of different guys succeed in this offense for Josh Heupel in terms of body types and skill set. But what they do need to be is fast in this offense. But there are certain slot guys around the country where you just know that they're going to be slot guys. They don't have the physical built and makeup to be an outside wide receiver to deal with the physicality of a corner doing press coverage down there and playing up on the line of scrimmage. So I think it's always interesting when in recruiting rankings, they want to rank specific slot wide receivers. But we're doing that now. And it was a couple of months ago, really, might have been towards football season, to be honest. Rivals.com put out like the top, slot receivers in the rankings, and Tyreek King actually led that ranking. And, here at Locked On Podcast Network, Brian Smith does an awesome job, a phenomenal job. He's Locked On FSU, Locked On Portal. He does recruiting hits for us, whenever we want to call on him. He's in the know. He knows what he's talking about. He's got years of experience covering recruiting and all that. And he's been going through and doing top list of all positions in the 2026 class. And he did slot wide receivers earlier this week. And if you're watching on YouTube, I'm going to flash the graphic up there. And as you can see, but if you're listening, I'll tell you, Tyreek King comes in at number 2 for Brian Smith on Locked On Portal. Top 12 slot wide receiver recruits for 2026. He is trailing only Vance Spafford, who's committed to Georgia. He's in front of Jermaine Bishop, who's committed to Texas. Trent Mosley Jr., committed to USC. Jamison Powell, who's committed to Ole Miss. Nasir Rankin, who's committed to Illinois. Jansen Lopez, who is currently uncommitted. Devin Carter, who's committed to Auburn. Braden Robinson, Corey Sadler Jr., those two guys are uncommitted. The Rogers kid that committed to Penn State, he's at number 11. And Bubba Frazier, who's committed to Notre Dame, is in there at number 12. And this is who Brian Smith believes are the top 12 slots in the recruiting class of 2026. And lo and behold, right there, the Knoxville Catholic not alum yet, he's still got a senior season to play, Tyreek King coming in at number 2. So that got me thinking. I mean, that's some high praise, and I think everybody's excited about Tyreek King. We did a Rivalry Thursday game last year, and I'm a part of that team, and I'm blessed to do that. And, it was George McIntyre on one side, Tyreek King on the other, and it was a whole lot of fun of, seeing two. At the time, Tyreek King was not a Tennessee commit, but I think a couple of days after that, he actually committed. But it was kind of fun to see two in-state guys, Power T kind of represented those two guys going back and forth. And on the first couple of plays of the game on each side, they were kind of going tick for tack, right? And it was Tyreek King that had a long reception, and then Brentwood Academy got the ball, and George McIntyre threw a long touchdown, and then Tyreek King made this great play on the other end. It was kind of fun. But it got me thinking about production of the slot wide receivers for Josh Heupel in this offense. And again, it's kind of there's a number of different body types and everything that kind of that are used here. And Tyreek King, 6 foot, about 170, 80 pounds. He's not a tiny guy, but he is certainly a bigger guy than some of the slot receivers that Tennessee's been utilizing. I think Braylon Staley is going to be a really, really good one. But let's go back to 2021. Going back all the way to 2021, really there's only 1 year that's an outlier, and I'll get to that here in a moment. The slot receiver is the leading guy for the most part, or if he's not the leading guy, he is a massive player in the system. So, it was kind of a two-man band there at wide receiver for Hendon Hooker in 2021. Cedric Tillman was the guy, don't get me wrong. He had over 1,000-yard receiving. He had 12 touchdowns. But Velus Jones in the slot, 62 receptions, only 2 fewer than Tillman, 870 yards, which was really good. So he was knocking on the door of 1,000. And, 7 touchdowns? That ain't bad. That is not bad whatsoever. So Velus Jones, though he didn't statistically lead Tennessee's wide receivers in 2021, he had a really good year. He had a very good year. And this is kind of what I'm saying. We'll get to Jalen Hyatt here in a moment and Squirrel White. Those two guys, their body types are different. Velus Jones was a running back. He was a wide receiver in a running back's body. There's a reason why. I'm not sure where he is, if it's still maybe Jacksonville. He started in Chicago, but Velus switched positions. I mean, he was getting some running back reps in training camp as late as last summer. He was a wide receiver in a running back's body. He was compact, quick, durable, all that and stuff, but playing in the slot position. But those stats were very impressive in 2021. 870 yards, 62 receptions, 7 touchdowns. Phenomenal work. You go to 2022, and this is where Jalen Hyatt took off, Biletnikoff Award winner, and a lot of times it was routes on air, man. He was just so fast. I wouldn't say that he was the most physically tough, that's bad phrasing, the most physical slot receiver Tennessee's ever had, but he had the speed, right? 67 receptions, 1,267 yards in 2022, 15 touchdowns coming out of the slot position. Of course, a lot of those never going to be touched again. Tennessee led the nation with 46 points per game that year after scoring 39 points per game in 2021. By the way, 46 points per game, obviously the highest of the Heupel era. 39 points per game offensively in 2021. That's the second highest in 4 years under Josh Heupel. 31 points per game in 2023, which was not good. 35 points per game in 2024. Top 15 or 16 in the country, not good enough, but still, that 46 was 11 points higher. Tennessee literally dropped from, now again, number 1 in the country, offensive records left and right, double-digit win season, Orange Bowl champions. Their Biletnikoff Award winner, should have been a Heisman finalist in Hendon Hooker. The fact that Stetson Bennett got invited to that ceremony is just the biggest travesty. I mean, just not trying to say that he didn't deserve praise or anything. He was a great player, great story. But the fact that Hendon Hooker was not a Heisman finalist, but Stetson Bennett was, an absolute train wreck by the committee. But nonetheless, we're not here to talk about that. We're going to talk about how Tennessee scored 46 points per game in 2022 and scored only 40 or 31 points per game in 2023. Went down a touchdown and a couple of touchdowns and an extra point. Just wild. That's crazy to me. A couple of touchdowns and a 2-point conversion, I should say. Nonetheless, Jalen Hyatt's numbers in 2022 were fantastic. In the slot, 67 receptions, 1,267 yards, 15 touchdowns. The touchdowns led the nation, and he was the Biletnikoff Award winner. You get to 2023, and statistically, the season wasn't great offensively, but Tennessee's slot receiver still led the way, and it wasn't even close. Squirrel White, 67 receptions out of the slot, 35 receptions for Romel Keaton. He was at number 2. Squirrel White, 803 receiving yards, led the team. Only 2 touchdowns, though. 2 touchdowns was not good enough. If you remember, Romel Keaton had 6 touchdowns that year. McAllen Castles, the tight end, had 5 touchdowns. Jacob Warren, the tight end, had 4 touchdowns. Not a whole lot of things to brag about in terms of the passing attack that year, but Squirrel White in the regular season doubled up the next closest receiver in terms of receptions on the year. So that came out of the slot position. And then you come in here to 2024, and it was all over the place. Squirrel White took a step back. I know he dealt with some injuries, but it was Dante Thornton that led the way, but he was barely on the field. He led the way with 661 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns. Brew McCoy, he battled injuries all year. He was next at 472 yards. He led the team with 39 receptions. And then there's Squirrel White, who really took a step back in production. 34 receptions, 381 yards, and only 2 touchdowns. So 3 out of the 4 years under Josh Heupel, the slot receiver, really 2 out of the 4 years, the slot receiver has led the way statistically. 3 out of the 4 years, Tennessee's gotten, I don't want to say elite 1 year, but Squirrel White and Velus Jones, their seasons in 23 and 21 respectively, very good, very productive from the slot position. So that gets me excited when you look at Tyreek King and the potential of Tyreek King, and you see guys like Brian Smith, Locked On Portal, putting out these rankings, and Tyreek King up there, Tennessee football commit, class of 2026, ranking number 2 in terms of the slot receiver recruits in the country. That should get you excited because I think that there's a lot to be thrilled about in terms of his skill set and what his skill set could look like in this offense. So, hope you guys enjoyed that. Shout out Brian Smith for giving us some free content here on Locked On Vols. When we come back, Tennessee baseball busy in the portal. What are some of the names? What are some of the positions Tennessee's attacking? How does the House settlement get involved in all this? And we might not have time to discuss that on today's show, but Tennessee does get a commit yesterday, a local prospect. Very unique story. More on that to come right here as we continue on with this Thursday. Locked On Vols. Stay tuned. ETSU pitcher Brady Frederick commits to the University of Tennessee. He entered the transfer portal 2 days ago, went on a visit to Tennessee, 3 days ago, went on a visit to Tennessee 2 days ago, and then committed to Tennessee yesterday. It was one of those deals where he entered the transfer portal with a do not contact tag. We usually know what that means, but also it's not surprising because Brady Frederick was a Bearden High School alum. He was an in-state, all-state baseball player, infielder, pitcher, and then he goes to ETSU, and he has great success, and so when he wants to leave, it makes a whole lot of sense with the success that you had and the numbers you put up. If interested with Tennessee, you want to go home and play baseball. And that's what he did. Entered the portal, went on a visit to Tennessee, and went ahead and committed. I mean, it was pretty cut and dry. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot there. But what makes it interesting about Brady Frederick is he throws he calls it sidearm. But I mean, I haven't seen video of him, but I've seen pictures plenty. I mean, it's almost like a submarine-like approach from the right side. Any way you want to look at it, it's a different look. It's a funky look. And you got to love that look, right? When we see so many power arms in today's game, and Liam Doyle, 98, Marcus Phillips, 98, Tanner Franklin, 102, Nate Snead can hit triple digits. It's power, 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 power. And what makes it unique and what we love in the bullpen is a different look. And you got that with A.J. Causey in 2024. Is phenomenal. And now you're going to get that with Brady Frederick as he committed to the University of Tennessee out of the transfer portal by way of ETSU yesterday afternoon. But again, like A.J. Causey, though, very much starter-like numbers. 8-2 is the record this year in 2025, 2.67 ERA, .88 whip, okay? 24 appearances, no starts, but he tossed 77 and 2/3 innings. So he has starter-like innings out of the bullpen, struck out 76 batters, walked 19, allowed 25 runs, only 23 earned, but 25 of the 23 were earned. 23 of the 25 runs allowed were earned. 50 hits given up on the season, 23 extra base hits in the campaign. He even pitched against Tennessee. Remember, ETSU beat Tennessee in a midweek loss, and I like to tell you guys a lot of times that midweek baseball is not necessarily real baseball, but he pitched in that game. He went 3 innings and 2/3, allowed 2 hits, 2 runs, 4 strikeouts, 1 walk. He was giving Tennessee some issues at points in times because he pitched the longest stretch in that game for the East Tennessee State Buccaneers. He logged 3 saves on the season, the 2.57 ERA, 4-1 in conference games, and he was the Southern Conference, SoCon, Pitcher of the Year. So again, this isn't just a guy coming on, make room for me, I'm going to come back home and do all that. No, this is a legit dude that's going to help Tennessee's bullpen in a massive way next year. And with the funky delivery, the different delivery, sidearm/submarine, it's going to cause some issues for right-handed batters for sure. And sometimes left-handed batters just might get lost, right, in the delivery. So I really, really like this pickup for Tennessee. Again, I think it makes all the sense in the world coming to Tennessee. Had a lot of success at ETSU, and he joins a portal class so far at the time of this recording that has 4 commits now. All right-handed pitcher. Clay Edmondson, UNC Asheville, Mason Estrada of MIT. Yes, MIT apparently has a baseball program. That's Division III, by the way. Bo Rudy of Kennesaw State, Edmondson, a grad transfer, and Estrada coming from MIT. Those guys are draft eligible. Those guys are going to be tough to hang on to. Or Edmondson, for sure, in my opinion, is going to be tough to hang on to. Bo Rudy is not draft eligible. He will be here. Tennessee's also signed the top junior college player, right-handed pitcher, Matt Barr from Sunny Niagara. He is draft eligible, and he's a top 200 draft pick. So I think Tennessee's really going to have a hard time hanging on to Matt Barr. But Tennessee's also signed in the junior college ranks Tyler Myatt from Walter State. I think we spoke on him on this show lately, maybe last week. The Triple Crown Award winner at the plate, leading junior college in average home runs and RBI from Walter State and from Claiborne County. Shout out Claiborne County. And then Trent Grindlinger, who is a part of the class of 2025, high school prep guy, but he was committed a couple of weeks ago. He was a late add, and he's a top 30 prospect in the class and the top 100 prospect for the draft, but thinks he wants to be here and play college. So anyway, talking about Frederick here, but I mean, it's obviously the strategy for Tony Vitello, Frank Anderson right now is to add pitching. Currently, they have, I say currently at the time of this recording, but Tennessee is hosting guys left and right over the week, right? So Brady Frederick came in. He was in on a visit on Tuesday, committed on Wednesday. On Tuesday night into Wednesday morning or Wednesday during the day, Landon Mack, a right-handed pitcher from Rutgers, a freshman, 15 starts this past year, 6-5 the record, 4.03 ERA, 80 innings and a third. Started the season as the Saturday night starter and then moved to Friday night. He's in the transfer portal. He visited Tennessee's campus on Wednesday, and Tennessee wants him very, very badly. At the time of this recording, the expectation is that either Thursday or Friday, Seton Hall outfielder Aiden Robbins is going to be in on a visit. And what did he do this past year? Well, led the Big East with a .422 batting average in 53 games. A lot of times you see a batting average that's like over 400 or something. And it's like, oh, well, that must not be it must be a small sample size, right? 53 games. 53 games, .422. Incredible. Stole 20 bases on 21 attempts as well. 6 home runs, 38 RBI, 19 doubles, 5 triples, struck out just 32 times, walked 44 times. Very, very decisive, smart hitter at the plate, led the Big East in batting average, on base percentage, not draft eligible, has 2 years of eligibility remaining. So Aiden Robbins, if Tennessee's able to get that one, that is a good one. But also Tennessee's looking for an infielder. I think there's going to be an infielder on campus later this week, maybe over the weekend. More on that to come. When that's finalized, I'll announce it. But, and then don't forget, Tennessee hosted Henry Ford, great name, from Virginia, the top player by many publications on the transfer portal right now, first baseman outfielder. He entered the transfer portal when Virginia's coach left and took the job at Mississippi State. I think he's going to the draft no matter what, because he's one of those top 100 draft prospects, but Tennessee also hosted him as well. So Tennessee is going to get more players out of the transfer portal this cycle than they did last year, because last year they didn't have much time to work. Spent 2 weeks in Omaha, and then after that it was parades and all that, and then everybody went and played summer ball, and the coaching staff had to go to the Cape Cod League and Team USA and this and that and the other. They're going to have a bigger portal class this cycle, but it's going to be interesting because the house settlement rosters are shrinking. Now, Tennessee's going to go full Scully, which is a good thing. That's a great thing. But scholarships or rosters are shrinking from Tennessee had 50 players, not on the active roster this year, but Tennessee had 50 players a part of the team this year, only 40 on the active roster, and then 36, 37 in SEC play? You're going to be shrinking that down from 50 to 34. But will there be a grandfathered in approach? What number is that? Will they count against the scholarship number? When does the scholarship number have to be at 34? Is it December 1st? Is it right before first pitch? Will they allow bigger rosters in the fall? Again, there's so many questions that we don't have the answer to. What we do know is baseball is going to a 34-man roster, and Tennessee's going to fully scholarship, and that is a good thing, but you're losing out on some key walk-ons and on some guys that you really, really need for fall training and for preseason training as well. So the whole house settlement thing, as we spoke on earlier this week, very interesting when it comes to the sport of baseball, because, again, you have to count in, Tennessee's signed 25 guys, right? 5 of those guys at least are going to go to the draft, but that's still looking at like 18, 19, 20, okay? Then you count in the transfer portal. You're going to lose some guys at the draft and all that, but you still have a bunch of guys who are set to return, but obviously that's not going to be the case anymore. And this isn't just at Tennessee. This is all over the place. So very interesting to see how the numbers are going to be worked out across the country in college baseball. So, but that's the latest with Tennessee baseball in the transfer portal. Brady Frederick commits to Tennessee from ETSU, but attended high school at nearby Bearden, and a phenomenal player, SoCon Pitcher of the Year, and going to bring his unique delivery to Knoxville. Really, really looking forward to that. Landon Mack is on campus was on campus on Wednesday. We'll see exactly if if Aiden Robbins makes it to campus, expect that, and we'll see who else is going to be here at the end of the week and potentially over the weekend. So busy time in terms of Tennessee baseball in the transfer portal. Looking forward to following all that as well. All right, appreciate you guys for joining us here on a Thursday Locked On Vols. Fun show, kind of going over the latest football commits and what's to come, and looking at baseball transfer portal, looking at Tyreek King, one of the highly rated prospects in Tennessee's committed class right now. So shout out to Brian Smith over at Locked On Portal. Give Locked On Portal a watch and a listen as well. He does a fantastic job over there. So fun show today. Looking forward to continuing this conversation in many respects on Friday's show. We'll continue to look at the baseball portal, what's going on, the latest in the House settlement, what's going on with Tennessee football. Official visit weekend, a massive one coming up for this weekend. We'll work to get a list and some of those names who are going to be on campus. All that and more coming up on a Friday show. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Eric Cain. Please like and subscribe this show, download this show, continue to help grow this show to get it more and more in front of more and more Tennessee fans. Can't thank you enough, everydayers. This show is for you, and we'll talk to you again on Friday, everybody.